Hey guys, PK Patel here with the awesome John Matthews coming at you for another video series. Today we're going to cover balance transfers. Last time we covered cash advance and how to do them. This time it's going to be all about how to initiate a balance transfer. So this is a nuts and bolts videos on what to actually do and what actions you need to take and what steps you need to go in order to get yourself a balance transfer. So let's start with a balance transfer, Johnny. In order to do a balance transfer, a debt is required somewhere, right?
You got it.
You need to owe money to somebody in order for another lender to come in and take that debt on and send money to whoever you owe money to, right? To pay
Mm-hmm.
it off. Okay, so in most cases, you need debt, right? So that's number one. So make sure you have debt. And there's multiple ways that you can initiate a balance transfer. So we're going to use some example cards so that, let's say in this case, for this entire video, I have a Discover credit card that has a debt on it. And uh, this card was actually left out in the sun for too long and it kind of melted. So never mind my drawing. But let's say I have a Discover card and it's got a $8,000 balance on it. So I owe $8,000 to Discover. And the goal is to pay this $8,000 off that I'm paying maybe 15% interest on, right? With a lower interest rate and to be able to get out from underneath this 15%. That's the primary goal of a balance transfer. So let's go over some ways on how we could do that. What are some ways on how I would be able to do this?
So, if you've got a credit card with balance transfer option available, there's a few ways you can initiate a balance transfer. Option 1, you can do a balance transfer online. Or option 2, you can initiate a balance transfer over the phone with the institution that you want to transfer a debt to. Number 3, you could initiate a balance transfer inside of a banking branch of the institution that you want to move debt to. Or, lastly, you can initiate a balance transfer with a balance transfer check. And I'll go into detail about balance transfer checks at the very end of this video. But we'll start with online. How do you do a balance transfer online? Really simple. So, we've got a Discover card sitting here with an $8,000 debt at 15% interest. Maybe I have a credit card with Capital One. Capital One sends me an email saying, hey, transfer balances to Capital One at 0% interest for 12 months. Click on this link to initiate. Well, I can click on that link to initiate a balance transfer, and it will likely ask me to log into my Capital One account online,
Okay.
where I'll then be taken to the balance transfer screen. But if you get an email from Capital One to initiate a balance transfer, follow the prompts in the email or log into Capital One online banking and click on the balance transfer link. The balance transfer link might be staring at you as soon as you log in, or walk through your online menu prompts to see if you can find a link called transfer balances or balance transfers.
Or
Yeah,
sometimes it's disguised as get a lower APR today or some kind of a promotion. So they phrase it different ways depending on who the lender is. They could get really creative, right? So look for all these buzzwords on how to save money. But the action item is going to be transfer a balance today, uh, 9 times out of 10, right?
correct.
Okay.
So once you've clicked on the area that's taking you to the balance transfers page for, in this example, the Capital One card, Capital One is going to ask you for some information. Now, when you initiate a balance transfer, Generally speaking, a debt is going to be transferred from card to card. So in this case, we're going to be transferring a debt from Discover of $8,000. Capital One needs to know some information about the Discover card. They need to know the bank name, Discover. They need to know the amount of debt you want to transfer, $8,000. They're going to need to know the Discover credit card number, which is on the front of your Discover card. And they're also going to need to know the address for mailing payments to Discover. You can find the address for mailing payments to Discover by looking at a most recently issued Discover card statement, usually somewhere on the cover page of the statement near the payment remittance stub. You'll see your home address, and next to your home address, you'll see the mailing address for payments for the credit card company. Save that address because Capital One's going to need that to initiate the transfer. So when you're initiating the transfer to Capital One, enter in the amount you want to transfer, enter in the Discover card number, the bank name is Discover, and enter in Discover's payment remittance address. Then click on Submit. Boom, you're done. From there, Capital One is going to send a payment to Discover. It's going to take 5 to 10 days for Discover to receive the payment that gets sent to them from Capital One. But once that payment clears, you'll see a $0 balance on Discover, which means you're no longer paying 15% interest to Discover, and you'll see a $8,000 balance on Capital One plus a balance transfer fee. But the $8,000 balance that's now carried on Capital One is going to be at 0% interest for, well, it may be at 0% interest, but in this example, it's probably going to be at 0% interest for 12 months.
Got it. Okay. So it's simple. It just sounds like I log into my online banking and initiate a payment. It's very simple. And I have to have all this information of the card that is being paid in order to fill out this form to initiate the $8,000 check to get sent to Discover and pay it off. Very, very simple. Okay. Now, let's say I don't have a link for Capital One. I log into Capital One. I don't find this link to do it online. It could also be done over the phone depending on the lender, yes?
That's correct. And if you want to initiate a balance transfer over the phone, all you need to do, call the phone number on the back of your credit card. In this example, we're going to be transferring a debt to Capital One. Since we're transferring a debt to Capital One, we'll want to call Capital One to initiate the balance transfer. So call the phone number on the back of the Capital One card. When a representative comes on the line, let them know that you'd like to initiate a balance transfer. And from there, Capital One's going to need to know the same information we talked about previously. They'll want to know the bank name that you're paying off, the account number, the credit card number that you're going to be paying off, the balance of the account the amount that you want to pay off on the card, and the payment remittance address. So tell Capital One that you want to make a payment, you want to transfer a balance from Discover, give them your Discover card number, give them the Discover payments address, and give them the amount that you want to pay off on Discover, $8,000. From there, the representative will initiate a balance transfer. They'll send a payment to Capital One to pay off, Capital One will send a payment to Discover to pay off the balance owed on Discover, and then you'll carry a balance on the Capital One card. Again, this transfer can take 5 to 10 days to clear from the day it's initiated.
Awesome. Again, I'm sensing a theme. It's the same information that's needed for online as opposed to the phone. So it's the same thing that you're doing, just a different way of doing it, right?
And when you visit a banking branch, the next option to initiate a balance transfer at a banking branch, you're going to do the very same thing. Sit down in front of a banker, let the banker know that you want to initiate a balance transfer, and they're going to want to know the same
information. Right?
Now, keep in mind, when you're walking into a branch, we're talking about walking into a Capital One branch. So we've got a Capital One credit card we want to transfer debt to. So if we're going to do a Capital One balance transfer in a branch, the transfer will be initiated inside of a Capital One banking branch. Sit down with a Capital One banker at a Capital One branch, tell them that you want to initiate a balance transfer. The banker's going to ask you for the information of your Discover card. What's the card number? What's the bank name, Discover? What's the payment remittance address for Discover? And what's the dollar amount that you want to pay off on Discover? For this example, $8,000. And then from there, the banker can initiate the transfer to pay off the balance owed on Discover.
It's basically the same information, right? We mentioned for phone. So nothing different. You're now just doing it via walking into a Capital One branch.
You got it.
Very easy. Okay, so I'm following. Now, let's say I don't feel like doing any of these. I don't want to do them. What's my final option?
Last option is balance transfer checks. And balance transfer checks are a really fun thing. So balance transfer checks are physical paper checks. They look like regular checks out of a checking account, but the checks happen to be tied to your credit card. So sometimes Capital One will send out letters in the mailbox to Capital One customers, and inside of those letters will be physical checks tied to the Capital One card. If you receive balance transfer checks, and sometimes they're called convenience checks from Capital One, then you can write out that check. For example, if we're going to use one of those checks to pay off the balance owed on Discover, on the balance transfer check, in the Pay To area of the check, we can write in the name Discover. In the amount that we want to pay off area, we can write the amount of the check out. We can write the check in the amount out of $8,000, sign the check, and then you can mail that balance transfer check to Discover. Now, the Capital One balance is taken on, and the balance on Discover is paid off. So those balance transfer checks, they can be used to transfer balances between accounts, but what's fun about them is you can also write those checks directly into your own bank account to transfer money directly into your bank account. And we'll go into detail about using those balance transfer checks in a future video.
What?
For cash.
That is crazy. So I could potentially have all that money go directly into my bank account. That's awesome. So it's actually more of a strategy that we use. So we're not going to cover it in this nuts and bolts video, guys, but it's one of my favorite strategies to draw cash off a credit card is to use balance transfer checks. All right, Johnny, so we covered these 4 ways on how to initiate a balance transfer. So in going through these 4 ways, what are some pitfalls that we need to watch out for? Because I'm sure there's certain things that we shouldn't do, right?
Well, I will say it's important to know that if you initiate a balance transfer, you're likely going to incur a balance transfer fee. This isn't always the case, it's just likely. Oftentimes when you initiate a balance transfer, the credit card company that you're transferring a debt to will have a 1% or a 2% or a 3% or a 4% fee involved to transfer a debt. So in the example that we've been talking about, there's a $8,000 balance on a Discover card. If that debt gets transferred to Capital One, if there's a 4% balance transfer fee, then the balance that will end up on Capital One after the transfer is completed will be $8,320 because $320 is 4% of $8,000. And so keep that in mind. Balance transfer fees are important to recognize. Also, very important, never, ever put your credit cards over the limit. Even if the credit card company says it's okay to put your card over the limit, it is terrible practice. Don't exercise any advantage. Don't ever put your credit cards over the limit. So let's take an example. Let's say that this Capital One card that we're transferring a debt to has a $10,000 limit. When the $8,000 balance is transferred from Discover to Capital One, we know the balance on Capital One is going to be $8,320. $8,320 is less than $10,000, which is a beautiful thing. In fact, $8,320 is about 83% of $10,000, so that's safe. Try not to put any credit card balance over 90% utilized. So keep in mind, when you're transferring a balance, before you initiate the transfer, write down on paper after the balance transfer fee what the balance on the card would end up being. before you initiate the balance transfer, and be sure that after the transfer is completed, the balance on the card is still less than 90% of the current limit of the card. Banks don't like it when a balance exceeds 90% utilization, so it's safe practice to keep your balances below 90%.
Awesome. Now, this is basic math, guys. Just be aware of how much limit you're using on that Capital One card that we use in this example to initiate the balance transfer. So ideally, you want a zero balance on the card that you're transferring the debt to. So on that Capital One card that is paying off your Discover, you want that Capital One to be sitting at a zero balance with a $10,000 limit. And then this $8,000 balance transfer is easily executed even with the fee without going over that 90% threshold, right?
So keep in mind, when you're initiating balance transfers, sometimes the balance transfer is going to be at 0% interest, which is fantastic because everyone loves money at 0% interest. But your balance transfer may not be at 0% interest. And even if your balance transfer isn't at 0% interest, sometimes it may still be a good idea to transfer a debt, because if you can transfer a debt off of your personal credit report, whether it's at 0% interest or not, it may still be a good idea. So don't be discouraged if a balance transfer to a business card might not be at 0% interest.
Got it. So reporting matters. So in our case, all of our clients get business credit cards that are going to be completely invisible on their personal credit report. And if they initiate a balance transfer from, let's say they have a business credit card and it's with B of A. B of A business card, and then on this side, and it's not offering them 0% to do a balance transfer. On this side, they have a personal, let's say TD Bank card. And this one has a $9,000 balance on it out of 10,000. And this one has zero balance out of 10,000. But this one is completely invisible. That's my version of an I, by the way. On your personal credit report, right? Even if the interest rate on B of A is 14%, and so is this one, 14%, you're not really saving any money. As a matter of fact, you might be paying a balance transfer fee of 1 to 4% to get rid of this debt and put it on this B of A card. However, the increase in FICO score that you would experience by not having this 9,000 here and having it here is worth that fee, is what you're trying to say.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. I'm getting this, Johnny. I'm getting it. Now, that's a very interesting concept. But anything else?
In terms of balance transfers, that's all I can think of for the moment.
Awesome. All right, guys. For this video, that is all we have for you. Stay tuned for next time, and we'll show you how to put all of these financial strategies together to get the cash into your bank account at an optimum interest rate. Over and out. Good job.